boozy crowd today. But that's okay. Technology that I didn't want to read comments. I knew about them, but I really didn't want to know anything about them because I was like, okay, it's technology. I don't want to deal with it. But one day I was bored and I was like, okay, well, let's see what people are saying. And the shock is what evolved into this book. So I pretty much became preoccupied with it because every time I read something, it was just like, it just seemed like so insulting and so offensive that I couldn't believe that it was allowed to be published on a newspaper website. Because, you know, on a newspaper website, whether it was the New York Times or even the Daily News, you know, you see this pristine copy. You know, you see the story, and then below it, you're going to see all kinds of grammatical errors and all kinds of stuff like that. And you're like, wait, what happened? It's like night and day. So the first comment that I ever read was from the Daily News. I used to think blacks were just stupid. Now I'm convinced that they're mentally unfit. Every time they don't get their way, it's some great white plot against them. How about they just grow up? So that was the very first comment that I read. And I called the editor and I said, look, what is this garbage that's on the website and why is it allowed to be published? And so he was like, yeah, you know, you're right. When you talk to the editors, this, that, and the other thing, and it would get taken off. So that was day one. On day two, there were more. And I was like, okay, I did the same thing. And the third day, I did it again. And then I just found that, okay, so then I went beyond the Daily News and I went to some of the other websites and it was all the same. But what I noticed in particular is that a lot of the comments against African Americans was just particularly offensive. And it was offensive to me because I recalled why I started writing in the first place. For those of you who don't know, I've been a journalist for 23 years, and I started out at the New York Times back in 1988. And education and all that kind of stuff. And the comments were the same, whether it was children or adults or men or women. I have a chapter just about black women called Black Women Bad Choices. And that's because the perception to me online is that black women are the worst, they make the worst choices in men, the worst choices in the amount of children that they had and all that kind of stuff. And it was just like, I don't understand. It's like, you know, everything had to do with welfare and, you know, oh, any kid that you have, you know, it's just a problem for the taxpayer and stuff like that. And I was just like, I don't understand where this is coming from, and I don't understand what the purpose of it to, you know, have it online constantly. So not only am I reading it, you're reading it, kids are reading it, and it's just like, people have got to be offended. I know I was, which is how this sort of worked. So when I started putting everything together, some of the comments were just, you know, just kind of out of the way. Okay. Now, one of the things that I noticed too is that it's not. A lot of these comments weren't from obvious white supremacists. What I found is that, you know, some white supremacists would double dip. They'd be on sites like Stormfront, and jump on USA Today or whatever, just to throw a bomb in, just to get some reaction. But what I found is that a lot of these comments weren't necessarily from them. And it could have been someone sitting right next to you, standing behind you in line at the bank, you know, sitting across from you, sitting next to you at work or anything like that. And that's what was the scary part. So at some point, newspapers started really getting upset, and a lot of articles started being written about how bad online comments were. Basically, they were saying, you know, it's making them look bad, it's making the community look bad, so what do we do about it? So at some point, they came up with software. They had filters, and the filters would filter out, you know, certain words, obvious words and stuff, and so people learned how to fool them. They'd spell the N-word differently, you know, so that they could get past the filter, stuff like that. So after a while, there started being workshops and all these types of things for news editors to figure out how to deal with comments because they were getting so bad that they just didn't know what to do with them. And at the time, they couldn't shut them off yet. So it was just interesting. I just couldn't understand the whole point, the whole logic behind it because it just didn't make sense to me. So, okay, so I interviewed Mark Hotup from the Southern Poverty Law Center. And he had some interesting things to say about about online commenting. Now he